So I thought today we'd just take a quick look at how the seedlings are doing from this month's early sowings and last month's late sowings. And I've got to say I'm pretty pleased with them all. I'm in my little conservatory grow room, kind of den here. I've got some grow lights behind me. But a lot of the growing that I do in here from now on is actually going to be on the windowsills and up on my little grow shelf. And I've also got lots of stuff at the polytunnel, which I'll show you a bit later. So let's just have a quick look around. So I do a lot of seed starting on the windowsills, and then I move things to the grow lights, and then I move them back onto the windowsills after a while. So there's some of my peppers, for example. They're looking beautiful, aren't they? These are all hot peppers, chili peppers, and very pleased with those. Obviously a few different varieties there. Nice and stocky, that's what we want to see. No need for support, really nice and sturdy. And then I've got some more. These are all sweet peppers. Again, you can see lovely and stocky. And I don't use any kind of propagators or anything like that. They just really like it in here. I've got a little fan up there, maybe you can see it. And so that kind of blows down on them. And they seem to really like that. And when you look at those now and you think, well, we're towards the end of February, and look at the size of them. Way too big. So I'm pleased that I only started a quarter of my peppers in January and left the rest until February, because what sort of size are these going to be come late May when I plant them out? Way too big. So I got my first cucumber. That's actually going to be grown in this conservatory, and it's looking all right. I did start two. The other one is not quite so impressive, but then these are the next batch, and these are also going to grow on in the conservatory. And I just got my first couple of tomatoes, and really, again, these are just to grow on the kitchen windowsill and the conservatory for most of their lives. Hardly any tomatoes until April, actually, for me, because they just grow so quick. And these are the peppers that I just pricked out. Might actually take another tray from those down there. And there's the ones that I pricked out, and they're looking great. They've already put in a lot of growth since I did it. I only picked them out, I think, 2 days ago, and they're already starting to show their first true leaves. I always like to prick things out when they're really small, and sort of minimises any transplant shock. And that's the grow shelf in the conservatory where all those peppers will go soon. Once they've got a good amount of leaf area, they're really happy up there, and there's enough light in March and April for them. So then I've got these kind of little corner spots, and last year I tried doing early tomatoes in these corners, and it just wasn't a good experiment. Tomatoes need so much light in order to stimulate large trusses, and so I got really nice big plants that grew right up here with about 5 or 6 trusses on them, but each truss only had 5 or 6 tomatoes on, so it really wasn't very good use of the space. And we absolutely love to be surrounded by all of this growth. So this year I thought, well, I'll do potatoes. I'll just see how they do, because we're always kind of starting to run out of baking potatoes in April. And so I thought, well, let's try growing some baking potatoes in here, and looking pretty good. So I've got another one here. I'll actually release a video in March talking all about how to grow early baking potatoes. I don't recommend doing what I've done here, growing them in the conservatory yet, because I don't know what the results are going to be like, but I can recommend doing them in early March, and I'll show you how I do those. I've just started my next batch of potatoes, and probably next week I'll put them in tubs like these, I'm not quite sure what to do with these. I really want to move them to the allotment, but they're just doing so well in here, so I think I'm going to leave them for a bit longer. Defer the decision. And then here's a new batch of lettuces and brassicas, and they were sown 4 days ago. They're just starting to germinate now. I'll pick them out in 3 or 4 days probably, and then I'll stick them under grow lights. It's still not quite bright enough, I don't think, to grow really healthy stuff without grow lights, but it will be soon. Early March should be fine if it's nice and sunny, and it looks like it's going to be. So these are my early kales, and they're looking fantastic. I'm planting those out under a low tunnel next week, and I don't do green curly kale quite this early. I think it's too early for that, but these Tuscan kales do really well when planted out really early. They will go to seed slightly earlier, so they tend to go to seed sometime in summer, but by then obviously we'll have our main crop kales, so not to worry. And then I've got just a few lettuces. These are a maize, a really nice little heart in lettuce, and just a few onions, hardly worth even mentioning really. I've got so many onions on the allotment, which I'll show you in a minute. And I have got just one tray of broad beans, which I just popped in after the big freeze when it looked like we'd lost a substantial amount of our beans, and I think that's still the case, so I'm pleased I took the effort. So I just brought these to the allotment, just harden off here for a few days. They're going to get planted out on Monday. And I've got some radishes as well. I'm probably going to plant these radishes into the brassica bed, so that should be nice. I've just started a few tubs, 4 tubs of carrots, and obviously that I only did those yesterday, so they've not germinated yet. I've got these which I germinated in October and November, and those as well. And they were looking pretty good, starting to put a bit of growth now. And all the alliums are on the allotment now, apart from the main crop leeks, which I haven't even sown yet. So these 2 trays are the summer leeks. These are the shallots. These are the spring onions and the salad onions. These are the pickling onions, and then these are the main crop onions. And I've also got, I don't know, 300 sets as well, so plenty there. And I've got one more tray of Oregon sugar pod moisture peas to plant. The rest are all planted. And one more tray of Brussels sprouts, super early ones for leaves. And again, the rest are all planted. So now I'll just quickly show you all the stuff that, all the seedlings that I've just recently planted in the ground. There's nothing outside, everything's under cover somewhere, but it's a bit of a grim day, so something to do. So I've got about 1,000 spring onions growing into planted all over the place. I've also got loads and loads of cauliflowers and calabrese interplanted into the beds in the polytunnel and outside in low tunnels and coal frames. Lots of new season lettuce coming on quite nicely, and then lots of old season lettuce just sort of hanging in there. It's going to pick up nicely in March. Lots more little calabrese waiting to be planted out if I can find space for them. Cuttings from the perennial kale plants. I just planted out these little baby spinach, but I've got loads of spinach right now, which we're harvesting. So there's one of the spinach beds. I've got one other like that, and there's one of the Brussels sprouts growing for leaves beds. And I can't remember what these are, snowball cauliflowers, looking quite nice. There's one of my new season beds. Monstew peas, sugar snap peas, lettuces and turnips. And then calabrese, all interplanted with onions, and beetroot. And that's my first batch of beetroot, multi-sown. That's the last one that's still not been planted. And these are all interplanted. These beetroot all bolt hardy into the polytunnel spinach bed. And then we've got radish interplanted as well into the rest of the spinach bed. So if you've got any questions, more questions about all the basics, sowing seeds, pricking them out, potting them on, planting them and all that sort of thing, then I do recommend taking a look at my little gardening book. It's free, and you want to be looking at the section Vegetable Gardening Basics. And so in there I go through planning, sowing, working with grow lights, hardening off, planting, looking after the soil. And I'm just working on these two sections, dealing with pests, dealing with weeds. I've got a section about growing under cover, which is pretty relevant right now. And then eventually I will have sections on harvesting, so storing and preserving. But for now, mostly about sowing. And yeah, I cover a lot. There's a lot of videos embedded in here that are quite useful. I talk about everything: seed starting compost, potting compost, all the equipment that I use, where I get my seeds from, where I get my pens from, where I get my labels from, etc, etc. So I won't bore you with all of that, but anyway, plenty of stuff to be reading there. And if I mentioned anything that you didn't quite catch the name of, just check out in the description of this video and you'll see some links to everything I've sown so far and everything that I've planted so far, and there you'll find all the different varieties, all the information about them, etc. Obviously I'm looking at this on my phone, but you could also pull it up in a web browser, and it works great. So yeah, it's a pretty useful reference list. I'm using it all the time. And there's also information about this database, and you can get a copy of it yourself and all of that sort of thing. And you'll find all the information about that in the frequently asked questions document that is also linked in the description. So that is about it. I think that's all the seedlings that I've got. Everything else is mature plants that we're harvesting, and I'll show you those on a tour in a few days' time. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.